Now, as a reentry navigator, one of my roles is to help guys get housing. It's harder than I thought it would be. Everybody is different. Sometimes they don't have a family to come home to, and finding them Oxford housing or faith-based housing, that's a big barrier right there. Because even though we can find them housing, sometimes the waiting list is months away, and you got to fill out applications. And so even though the process is hard, I could still represent them and do the groundwork for them out here, seeing what other resources there are, or building relationships with people who can potentially bring better housing to the community. I'm also attending to what's going on inside of them while they're in there, their hopes, their emotions, and letting them know that it's gonna be okay, we're gonna figure this out, we're here for you.
DOC stands for Department of Corrections, and basically there is two DOCs. The DOC, which is the incarcerated where the prison is, and those are like your DOC officers while you're in prison. They don't really talk to us, and we're not supposed to really talk to them. As far as counselors, I don't even know who my DOC officer was. I couldn't tell you because I never met one. I didn't even know that we were supposed to have DOC counselors, so that's interesting. I just learned something new too. The DOC officers on the outside though, those are the DOC officers that are in tune to what we're doing, where we're living. As far as housing, they're gonna do like the home visits. They are the ones that we report to know where we're working. If we have a car, what that car is, the license plate number. If we need to leave the county, we sign the travel sheets to let them know who we're going to see, what we're doing there, that sort of stuff. Those are the ones that are very in tune with what their probation person is doing.
It's very important to know your housing because you're coming out, I believe, with $40 to your name, and that's it. Building a strong foundation for yourself builds a strong foundation within yourself as well. Now, for example, if you're let out and you have nothing but besides your $40, you're gonna get overwhelmed 95% of the time. You're gonna go back to what you know and you're gonna fail. And the reason I say that, it would go for me as well. If I knew I didn't have a place to go, I'm gonna be overwhelmed, I'm gonna be scared. And the only thing that I knew at that time to cope with those emotions was to cope with the things that I knew how to do, which was using drugs. And it's a bad thing to go to. So it's very important to have resources and a place over your head.
One of the largest stones for me, there were two concerns. One is that I was eligible for a program called Graduated Reentry that allows individuals to, at 1 year, go to a work release facility when it's typically at 6 months. And then when you are 6 months from your release date, you can go on an ankle monitor and live at home with your family. My other stone that involved housing was, as a convicted felon, I was concerned that I wouldn't be able to get on the lease with my wife because she was part of a housing authority. So I raised the question to my team. I said, I believe that this is how we should frame it. With my history, having been tried as an adult at 13 years old and going to prison at a very young age and going in and out of prison several times after that, I said, who is this program crafted for? Is it crafted for the one-time drug offender, has a drug problem and is in and out of prison? Or should this program be utilized for guys who have demonstrated that they could potentially be career criminals, they're gonna potentially die in prison if something drastic doesn't change? Who does the Department of Corrections want to support? Who do they want to use their resources in, in making sure that this person has the opportunity to have a productive life? So that's what we framed to Tara Simmons, and then Tara Simmons contacted the head of the Department of Corrections and asked the same questions. Who was it intended for, and why is it not being used for who it's intended for? It went from no, not gonna happen, the head of the programming saying absolutely not, to be ready to go, you're leaving in a month. I was accepted into GRE. And then with housing, Brett Bauer contacted the mayor of Bellingham, the Whatcom County executive, both of those entities oversee housing. Without even having to file an appeal, housing said, yep, sure, he can live there.
partly because of my experience working with and volunteering for Habitat for Humanity here in Skagit County. I have kind of an understanding of how difficult it is to find affordable housing. I volunteered to take on that role on our team. So I researched Oxford houses, and I found two that were really quite close, and I drove by them and looked at them, and they both looked really nice. But then I was pretty dismayed to see that there were for sale signs in both of their yards. So I called the realtor and asked her if she knew what was going to happen to those if and when they sold, and she didn't. So I thought, well, maybe that's not so great. Then I checked into New Earth Recovery because our daughter is a friend with someone who works at one of the houses, and I really like that concept. Their description says that it's to help people get over addictions. It also helps people get over addictive behavior, realizing that addictive behavior is usually a way to numb past pain. This releasing friend has plenty of past injuries and pains, and this could be a really therapeutic place for him. And they also had a garden, and he had expressed interest in gardening. And I really tried to encourage our friend to consider that. But after reading the daily routine, it's like you get up at this time, you have to do this, you have to do that. It felt too structured to him, and he also did not like the idea of having to have a roommate. He really, really, really wanted to be able to live independently on his own, to be able to make his own decisions about how his day went. We had a member of the congregation who had been looking for someone to rent a room in his house. He's not part of our One Parish, One Prisoner team. He's just a member of our congregation. And so that worked out really, really well to be a supportive environment for our releasing friend, where he would have his own room and he wouldn't have to have a roommate and not have to interact with a lot of other people if he didn't choose to.
So that's just the power of the team. That's the power of listening to your person inside, formulating a game plan. And when the bureaucrats know that their constituents are backing an individual, they tend to listen a lot more than if that individual and that individual's family are just saying, hey, I need help. It's so easy to overlook the wife with 3 kids at home, with a husband and a father that's sitting in prison. But when several members of the community and members of churches are saying, hey, what's going on here? Why is this happening? They tend to sit up, take notice, and take action. Through a game plan, through mobilization, and a commitment to wanting to overcome obstacles and rolling away stones, there's no greater demonstration of that than this. Truly, no's were turned to yeses, just with the stroke of pens and telephone calls.